The core of the Christian gospel is the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. In front of me are a number of artifacts that have to do with crucifixion. We have a nail which is about 11.5 centimeters long, very similar to the 4 examples we have of crucifixion victims with nails still in them. We have a spear that typifies the spear that was plunged into the side of Jesus. We have a first century die, which reminds us of the gambling for the clothing of Jesus. We also have a toga pin, what we would call a fibula, which would have held the clothing of Jesus, and then a whip, which reminds us of the beating that he took in Pilate's Praetorium. Now, Jesus was crucified. He died in the spring of AD 33 on Friday of Passover week. If he had remained in the grave, his body after 1 year, when the body had decomposed, the bones would have been collected into a bone box just like this. This is called an ossuary. Thousands of these have been found from the first century. They go into tombs that are shaped like my hand. So there were benches where bodies were laying. Once the body decomposed, the bones went into the ossuary, and the ossuaries were pushed back into these niches called kokim, and many times names were inscribed on them. This is a replica of the famous Caiaphas ossuary, and here on the side it has the name Caiaphas inscribed in Aramaic. We have an ossuary that is, along with the Shroud of Turin, our most valuable Christian artifact. This is called the James ossuary. It has a 7-word Aramaic inscription. James, son of Joseph, brother of Jesus. And there you see the brother of Jesus who wrote the Epistle of James, who ruled at the Jerusalem Council. We see that we're talking about real people, real places, and real events. Of course, Jesus did not stay in the grave. He didn't cooperate with the death program. Instead, as we know, he rose from the dead 3 days later. We have an inscription here, or a replica of an inscription in the museum called the Nazareth inscription. And the Nazareth inscription, which comes from Nazareth, gives us a decree of Caesar, very possibly Tiberius Caesar, written in about the year 34. And what it says is, I, Caesar, hereby decree that anyone who robs a grave in Palestine will be put to death. Now, we just discussed crucifixion and how horrific it was. Why would anyone in the first century be willing to risk being put to death to rob a grave? And incidentally, only graves in Palestine. It's not a law that applies to the whole Roman Empire, but only in Palestine. It seems that they had a problem with bodies disappearing from graves in about AD 33 in Palestine. In fact, we read in Matthew 27:51 that when Jesus came out of the grave, many others came out of their graves at the same time and were seen walking around Jerusalem. It wasn't just one empty grave, there were many empty graves that day. So between the Tiberius or Nazareth inscription and the Caiaphas ossuary, we have a stark reminder about life and death, and that Jesus paid the price so that we can have assurance of eternal life.